What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Daniel here with a brand new series for the channel. In this series, I'm going to be talking about Magic the Gathering, the collectible card game probably most of you have heard about. I like to play the game quite a bit, and I'm sort of in two camps right now. I'm trying to get more competitive and go to local events and actually win more, but I also have a fairly regular group that I meet with that plays multiplayer games that are just about being silly and having fun. And then I look online and I look on YouTube and I find a lot of resources for the competitive part of my brain that says these are the decks that are currently winning and this is how you pilot them and this is what your sideboard should be. And then I look for resources for the more silly part of my brain, the part that wants to build decks to take to the mall where a bunch of us meet and play Magic, and there's really nothing out there. So for this first episode, I'm going to go over my favorite card from M14, at least in that back part of my brain that likes to make silly things. I'm not talking about Scavenging Ooze, I'm not talking about Mutavault. Those are really fun for the competitive part of my brain, but the non-competitive part, that zoned in on Elite Arcanist. You pay 4 mana, 3 and a blue, for a piddly little 1/1 that doesn't even have haste. He does nothing when he drops down the board. But we're going to build a deck where your opponents have to kill it. This Elite Arcanist is going to be the most badass, scary guy, but he's going to need some help. So I tried to build a really crazy, off-the-rails deck with him in Standard, because at first I actually wanted to try and make him competitive in Standard. That just doesn't work. I couldn't make it competitive. I couldn't even make it all that fun, although I will go over the best attempt that I made. So maybe somebody out there can help it even more and make it the deck that I wish it could be in Standard. But first, we're going to drop all pretense of Standard legality. Most casual groups, they don't bring the Power 9 or anything, but they also don't play with the ban list. So we're going to be using some older cards. I'm going to try and do a good job of showing you the cards and explaining them, because if I were watching somebody else do a video like this, I probably would not just immediately know what these cards do. I had to look for these cards, so why not put them up on the screen where everybody can see what they do, like while I'm talking about them. So my first thought process with the Elite Arcanist is, well, he can mana fix. That's wonderful. If you exile an instant that costs, I don't know, green, let's say, and you don't even have any green mana sources, you can still exile it with Elite Arcanist and pay colorless to get this effect. You don't really want to do that if you can help it, because you always love to have the option of casting the spell from your hand in a desperate situation or something like that, but it can be done. We need to keep that in mind. Before I went down that path, though, I actually found something in blue that works really, really well with him. Although it's an interesting little card by itself. The card is Evermind. Now, for people that weren't playing at the time, it might look a little bit weird to see there is no casting cost for this card. That doesn't actually mean it's free. This is a card that you can't cast from your hand. It has to be spliced onto Arcane, which was a kind of weird mechanic from one set. There's not that many Arcane spells. And really, although it's nice to have the option, we're probably not ever aiming to splice this onto Arcane. We want to stick this bad boy under Elite Arcanist, because the way the rules work, no, we can't cast him from our hand, but we can put him under Elite Arcanist, and then X actually is 0. So we've turned Elite Arcanist into pay 4 mana, have a 1/1 guy, that when you tap him, you draw a card. That's not really that exciting. We've gotten that effect a lot cheaper before. But what makes this exciting to me and to lovers of really silly combos is that you are technically casting a spell, which is different than, previous examples that were cheaper than Elite Arcanist. What can we do with that? Now I'd like to introduce you to my real secret tech. This is the thing that makes everything work, at least the first two Elite Arcanist instances. This is what makes it work, and I love it. It's called Teller of Tales. It's from the same block, not the same set, the same block as Evermind, so it works with arcane things. It is a 3/3 flyer for 5, so a lot less fragile than the Arcanist, and a key component. Whenever you play a spirit, we don't care about that, or arcane spell, tap or untap target creature. Aha! We can tap Elite Arcanist for free. Cast the Evermind. Teller of Tales goes, "Hey, you cast an arcane spell. What would you like to do?" And we say, "Untap Arcanist, please. I would like to draw my entire library." You know how much you can do if you draw your entire library? Turns out quite a bit. The most obvious outlet is any card that gives you a benefit for discarding cards. You're going to have a lot of cards in your hand. And you can run just 1 or 2 copies of these discard outlets because, hey, let's face it, if you get Elite Arcanist, Evermind, and Teller of Tales, you can find your copy of it. It's not going to be a problem. There's a lot of discard outlets that can work. I consider my work done here. It's just choose your own discard outlet. There's no real extra work to be done down that path, and I think everybody can figure out which one they're the most interested in. So I'm going to go on to the next idea instead of fleshing out that entire deck. This next one does somewhat rely upon the fact that Elite Arcanist can mana fix. It's a red arcane spell. And if it were me building the entire deck, which I'm not going to do in this set, then I would probably have a light red splash at the very least, if not like 50-50. Because I want, in a pinch, to be able to cast a copy of this from my hand, probably. So I'd run 2 or so copies of Desperate Ritual. This one's really interesting. You can tap Elite Arcanist to get 3 red mana. He untaps because of Teller of Tales. And then you can pay 2 of that 3 in order to get 3 mana again. So you have infinite mana with a 3-card combo. You know, that's not bad either. You know, especially in red that has spells such as Fireball. You can do a lot with infinite mana. Now, my last attempt at a deck attempted to put both of these together into one deck because they both have a problem that the other one can solve. If you go for Evermind, then you've drawn your entire deck and now you have to figure out a way to use that to kill them. It's not a challenging problem, but it is still a problem. With Desperate Ritual, your problem is that you have all this mana and you have to find a way to use it. What if you don't have the Fireball yet? You probably don't want to run a whole lot of copies, especially if red is just a very light splash for you. Or even worse, what if you don't even splash red? Now you've got cards that you have in your hand that you can't even play, so you probably don't want to run a whole lot of copies of it, and what if you don't find it, right? So let's put them together. Let's have Evermind be our main thing that we want to exile with Elite Arcanist. We get the Elite Arcanist, we stick the Teller of Tales, and then we draw our entire library. Now we have found the Desperate Ritual, we have found the Fireball, and we have found our next secret tech. We do have to add white to play this, but you know what? That's not even a problem either, because if we do this before we've dropped a land for our turn, we draw our entire deck, or you know, a big chunk of it. We haven't played our land this turn. We found a white source because we put a white source in there. We only have to run like 2 planes to make this work. It's awesome. Drop the white source, tap it, play Cloud Shift. Now Cloud Shift exiles the Elite Arcanist. The Evermind goes away. Elite Arcanist comes back in. This is where knowing some of the rules fairly well actually helps quite a bit, because with Elite Arcanist, it's when it enters the battlefield. It's not when you cast him, it is when he enters the battlefield. So if you flicker him with Cloud Shift, then whenever he comes back in, you get to make a new choice. And now you've got your entire library in your hand. You can say, now I choose this Fireball guy. And you need a way to give him haste, which again is not a problem. Basically anything after Evermind is not a problem doing because you have your entire library. Play your white source, tap it, flicker him, give him haste, put the Fireball under him, and kill everyone. It sounds complicated, and it is. That's why it'll never be a competitive deck. But at the same time, once you've drawn your entire library, it doesn't matter how many pieces you have to assemble because you have them all in your hand. Another thing I really, really like about this sort of deck is that with a lot of combo decks, I'm not sure what rating I'm going to actually give this video, but with a lot of combo decks, players do what you often hear called deck masturbation. It means they just go off into a corner by themselves and they play their deck. Their opponent's not even there. Maybe they win, maybe it doesn't work this turn. And if it doesn't work this turn, you get to play a little bit more Magic. You play a turn that lasts about normal length, and then it goes over to them, and they take another hour doing their turn. It's ridiculous. With this one, you don't have to assemble that many pieces. Well, okay, you do. But once they're assembled, it doesn't take long at all. You go hey, I can draw my entire library. Will you let me shortcut this? They're like, yeah. You just draw until you have every piece you need, you put it down, you tap your mana, and they're dead. No deck masturbation. Okay, now as promised, I'm going to go over the standard deck that actually has nothing to do with Elite Arcanist. The Elite Arcanist mindset led me to this deck, and I think it's a very fun deck. It's kind of in the same spirit, and I want to see somebody make it much, much better, because I want this to be a deck, even if it's just a silly, casual play deck. Like, the one I have is not even good enough for that, and I want someone to make it good enough for that. So the pieces that we actually need, you don't need Elite Arcanist. He can help, maybe, if you put him in there, but he's not necessary. What we do need is Fathom Mage. Fathom Mage is a 1/1 for 4. A lot of my combo pieces are very, very fragile creatures. He's got Evolve, and whenever a +1/+1 counter is placed on Fathom Mage, you may draw a card. Now here again, you have to read very carefully. There's another Simic guy in the Simic set that puts a +1/+1 counter on a bunch of creatures only if he evolves. Fathom Mage does not say when it evolves you do this. It's just when a +1/+1 counter is placed on it. It's very important. The other required piece is Bioshift. Move any number of +1/+1 counters from target creature onto another target creature with the same controller. So you get where we're going with this. You want to Fathom Mage, you want to Bioshift a bunch of +1/+1 counters over on there, and you draw a bunch of cards. See, I told you, it feels very similar to the Elite Arcanist deck. And in fact, you can put a Bioshift under Elite Arcanist, and that might be a way to go. I've played with that. I don't actually like it. I'll be very happy if someone makes a version like that that works. Let me know if you do. But what you really do need is a way to generate a bunch of tokens, because Evolve is nice. It's not as good as I wanted it to be. You can't rely on it to give you a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters. What you can possibly rely on is Lotleth Troll. This guy is quickly becoming one of my favorite cards in all of Return to Ravnica. There's just so many ways to break him. And I don't mean break in the competitive sense. I don't think he's going to take down entire GPs or anything like that. But there's so many really interesting decks that he just loves to be in. So, he's got Trample, discard a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Now the nice thing is, you discard a creature, you put a +1/+1 counter on him, you Bioshift his counters onto Fathom Mage, and you draw creatures that you can discard to Lotleth Troll, get more counters, Bioshift onto them, and you draw creatures and more Bioshifts. So yeah, the idea behind this deck is you have a bunch of creatures, like the more the better, although you do need some sort of spells for surviving. So you play creatures. Mana ramping is really nice. If we're staying in standard, Elvish Mystic is basically all we have. I like Birds of Paradise if you break standard a little bit. So you ramp into Lotleth Troll, possibly Elite Arcanist, and Fathom Mage. You get a bunch of creatures, you discard them, you Bioshift over, you draw a bunch more. And the nice thing is, Lotleth Troll's at a lower curve, or lower point in your curve than Fathom Mage. Fathom Mage effectively has haste because all we're using it for is an ability where Summoning Sickness doesn't matter. And Lotleth Troll should be on the board already, hopefully. So you can drop the Lotleth Troll. He looks, I mean, he's a decent creature, but he's not that scary. You drop the Fathom Mage and you start your combo. They don't have time to respond to it with anything sorcery speed if you do things right, if you get lucky. So that's nice. One thing to definitely put into the deck, it's not as important, but it's still nice to have a copy or two. You'll probably draw it. Artful Dodge. That will be rotating out soon, and it's the only thing in the entire deck I have in there that is going to be rotating soon. But it's nice to be unblockable. It really is nice to be unblockable. Another nice tech is Elixir of Immortality. It's a crappy card normally, but after you've discarded all your creatures, you don't want to deck yourself. The nice thing is, the Fathom Mage says May, so you don't have to deck yourself, but it's even better if you can put down an Elixir of Immortality, and then just you have a library again. It's wonderful. You could even draw more creatures and keep doing it if for some reason you're not happy with a creature that's the size of your library for some reason. Urban Evolution is also nice because you get to draw cards and play additional lands. A problem with this deck is I always wind up with lands in my hand that I can't discard to the troll, and Yeah, that is a problem. I don't have a good land discard outlet, probably because I'm sticking to standard. That's an avenue to investigate if you're trying to make this deck better, maybe. Cremate has done some work for me. Normally the problem with Cremate is that, there's nothing in the graveyard, you can't do anything with it, but it's very cheap. It can help you if you just draw nothing but land off of Fathom Mage, get you that like one extra draw, and you're going to have something in the graveyard if that's your problem. If you want to push your curve up higher and just add that extra bit of ridiculousness, look into Colonian Hydra. The way I figure it working, and yeah, this is ridiculous. You do all this combo and you make sure to leave one Bioshift left in your hand, and you leave all the counters on Fathom Mage. You attack with the Hydra and the Lotless Troll. The way it works is, it says whenever Colonian Hydra attacks. So we're not even doing damage yet. It triggers when he attacks. You draw all these cards because all of the counters on Elite Arcanist just doubled. Sorry, all the counters on Fathom Mage just doubled. And you draw all these cards, and now you have even more things to discard the Lotless Troll. And you discard the Lotless Troll, and remember, you gotta have the Bioshift in your hand because most of your counters are on Fathom Mage. And now you Bioshift them onto Lotless Troll, who is gigantic. Cloning Hydra is a win more. If we were trying to make this into a competitive deck, you would not use it. No way you would use it. But if you're trying to make a fun deck, it's hard to think of something more fun than that. And yeah, that's the deck as I have it in current standard. It's not very good. I want it to be good. I want it to be good at least for silly play. So come on, somebody help me out. Give me more good ideas for silly decks that are very, very fun. I'm especially looking for cards that no one is playing, that no one is talking about, but can be really good if all you're looking to do is build a fun deck. If I don't get any or very much feedback or nothing catches my eye that viewers have suggested, my next card is very likely to be my previous favorite card from the Return to Ravnica block. The card that I pulled a foil version of in my very first pack I ever opened of the set, and it's still probably my favorite unplayable card, Death's Presence. Can you tell that I like +1/+1 counters? Yeah, that'll probably be a recurring theme. Until next time, try the deck out. Let me know how it plays for you. Let me know what you've done to it to make it better. And let me know what cards you want to see get this sort of treatment. Bye.